All right, we're live. Welcome to another episode of the WP Crowd. Today we are starting a new series on the WP Crowd, focusing on how to make money with WordPress. We're gonna have we have a few episodes lined up. I'm gonna try to do them back to back, but might spread them out over the next few months. Just focusing on really how to make money being a consultant and doing other things with the WordPress as your kind of main platform. So before we get too much into what we're talking about today, let me do quick introductions. There's only three of us today, a small crowd, but very, very intelligent people. So I'm going to start on my left with Jesse.
I'm Jesse Peterson. I'm not getting a frog in my throat. I'm in Florida, and it is warming up over here. I'm a WordPress developer who only does the Genesis framework, and I'm getting into some education stuff because I used to do Treehouse as a guest instructor. So I'm relaunching on Rainmaker here in the next week or so. So keep me accountable and make sure I launch my site here.
Okay.
Yeah, and Teresa.
Yes. Oh, hi. I'm Teresa Jennings. I am also a freelance developer, or I'm a developer in training. I'm a designer. I work exclusively in Genesis also. I'm not doing the Rainmaker because I can't afford it. But I love Genesis. After I started using it, after trying a few other themes, I thought, you know what, why don't I just pick a framework, which was Genesis, and learn it inside out. And really, you can do just about anything you need to do with Genesis as long as you know CSS and PHP. So I'm learning PHP. That's the in-training part.
So the main topic for today, if you don't know, is how to make WordPress or how to make money with WordPress if you're selling theme consulting. So we're going to focus on selling themes, or not really selling themes, but selling consulting of a pre-built theme to a client. So a client comes your way, you find a pre-built theme, whether it's a starter theme or just a ready-to-go theme from ThemeForest. You make your changes and then you sell the client on their website with that pre-built theme. A lot of people are making money doing this. It's probably one of the first and easiest ways to start making money with WordPress. Like, it's the gateway drug of WordPress money making. I think most people I know that are consulting nowadays, including myself, that's where they started. I mean, I started there too. I said, hey, I could build websites for people using WordPress, and the first thing I did was let me pick out a theme that already exists, that's already built, change some settings around, and boom, I have a theme for you, and I would sell it. You know, back then I would sell it for dirt cheap, and that was because I was in college, so I didn't really care. You know, $100 or $200 my way was enough for beer and stuff, so that's all I really wanted. But you know, things have come a long way. Now, Jesse and Teresa both mentioned Genesis, which is a framework. I think we've had two episodes on the WP Crowd about Genesis and talking about Genesis as a framework. I do want to get into a little bit more, but before we gonna get there, have you guys ever, let's say, not used Genesis, or maybe used a child theme of Genesis, but just didn't use, let's say, the framework itself? Like, have you ever installed a theme without touching code, changed settings around, and then that was your finished product?
Yes.
No.
So
Way back in 2008, 2009.
Because I don't think you can work on the child theme of Genesis without using Genesis, because the Genesis framework is the parent theme. And then you've got the child themes like Executive Pro and that type of thing. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think
so the child themes, do you need to code anything? Can you take a Genesis and a child theme and not touch any code, but still, let's say, create a
Yes.
variation enough of a website that you can then sell it to a client?
Yes.
Okay.
Some people actually make their business model revolve around making it look like the demo site, because the demo sites on StudioPress often look good enough that people are like, they're buying it because they want it to look like that.
And then they sell that as their consulting. They
Right.
say, okay, I'm gonna create
I'm going to
this.
spend 4 hours making it look like this.
So they're making a theme, they're not making a site.
Kinda. We're talking about um, buying a theme or downloading a theme, and then without touching the code itself, um, with changing settings and adding the appropriate content, um, creating a website for a client, usually a small business or something like that, something very minimal. Um, so I guess the question that I wanted to answer was, do you really need to know PHP and CSS to make money selling WordPress sites?
No. Well, if you didn't use Genesis, then you've got that abomination called Theme Forest, and they've got those admin panels that have 100 sliders and dials and switches and looks like a soundboard. Those things are completely configurable without, and they've even got page builders and stuff like that. I mean, it's not going to be something of the caliber that a developer would hand you off, but a junior developer who doesn't yet know how to do code could provide a pretty good service for someone who's in the $500 to $1,000 market.
Yeah. So I, the abomination that is Theme Forest. So for those of you who are watching and do want to know where to find themes, Theme Forest is a place you can go to find themes. I think the biggest issue I have with Theme Forest, besides the fact that usually the code is not great, is that you look at a demo, and one thing I like about Genesis, or at least my experience in the past, is when I look at a demo site built with one of their child themes, it's relatively easy to replicate. While when I go to ThemeForce and I look at a demo, I'm like, oh my god, this looks pretty good, good enough for, let's say, X client. I'll actually give you a perfect example. I'm getting married next week, and we wanted to put up a website, so I said, F it, I don't want to spend that much time on it. I'm just going to go to ThemeForest and buy a $40 theme. So my fiance picked out a theme. It looked fantastic. It probably took me way more hours than I want to admit to get my theme to look remotely like the demo, and it's still doesn't look anything like the demo. Just to get it to look decent. And I find that that's always the case with ThemeForest themes. Is the demo, yeah, it looks great, and sometimes they'll even give you a dump, content dump files that have everything to go, but it still never comes out the way the demo looks. So if you're on ThemeForest, or you're looking at themes on ThemeForest, just keep in mind that the demo is not the easiest thing. Depending on the theme, not always going to be the easiest thing to replicate. I have found in the past the Genesis ones are a little bit more easy to replicate. They don't usually have, again, they don't have the soundboard of admin panels to go through with all the settings. And all that control is great, I guess, if you really want it, but you really don't need it. You need simple. You need quick. One thing that a lot of people ask me, at my meetup group is, how do we truncate the time? How do we get a site from let me download the theme to a finished product faster? And the way to do that is not have 20 admin screens to go through for settings. You want a simple way to just get through it if you're not going to be coding the thing from yourself.
Yeah, Genesis has one settings page, and of course you're going to be playing with the widgets and the menus. And that's usually the extent of it.
Yeah,
if you're not coding.
Teresa, do you have any experience using like ThemeForest themes or anything like that, or have you strictly been Genesis the whole time?
No. There's about 3. I used Weaver Pro toward the beginning, and boy, that was a beast. That was just so many configurations and everything. The theme was probably about 4 megabytes, and it was just a pain to get around. I had downloaded another theme for a client who never got on the ball and did their website, and 2 years later, the theme from ThemeForest was not available any longer. I also used another theme that had from ThemeForest that had just terrible support, and it was also a bit of a beast. And then I found Genesis, and I thought, wow, this is lean and mean. I can customize it as much as I want, and it's just a great framework. So I've been doing Genesis ever since.
Yeah, I'm not a theme framework person. I've never been a theme framework person. However, um, if you are on the path of, let's say, wanting to become a developer, let's say um, your passion is in development, I'm not going to say that a framework is an obstacle. I'm going to say it's actually an easy place to learn, right, quickly. I found that WordPress itself is if you consider WordPress itself as a framework, and you can get from, let's say, no coding knowledge to basic PHP with WordPress. Genesis is only going to help you take that next step.
Yeah.
And tying this all back into selling WordPress themes, the more you know, the more you can value yourself, and the more money you can make. Which brings me up to my next point, which is a big question, and I know that there's a lot of variables involved. But where do you guys cut off the customization? If you are saying, okay, I'm going to have this theme for you, right? I'm picking out this theme, and we didn't even talk about whether you're telling your client or not, but we'll come back to that. You're picking out a theme, and this is the theme you're going to use for your client. Where do you guys cut off customization? And I found this is one of the trickiest things I've had to deal with. For a while, I was working at an agency that did Woo themes, and we would sell packages of Woo themes. And then, as soon as a client requested something that was kind of out of the box, and we kind of had to say yes, it became more of a nightmare because then we had to start hacking away at a code base that we didn't really want to. So, where do you guys usually cut it off? How do you know, based on the theme that you're picking out, where your limits are and where where to stop when a client is asking for a lot of customization?
Well, in my case, I charge by the hour. I charge, break it down by the minute. I keep track of my time, and I charge by the hour. So I just tell the client, okay, if you want to do this, and you want to do this, and you want to do this, this is going to take more time, and it's going to go over the budget that you have for the site. So I kind of let the client drive that as to how much they want to pay for it. Otherwise, like I have a foundation website coming up, and they're nonprofit. They don't have a whole lot of money, and so the guy is talking about what his daughter's going to want to do with customization, and I'm saying, well, we can customize it a little bit, but if you want to customize it more, it's going to cost more money, and it's going to take more time. So we'll see how that goes. Jesse, what about you?
Well, I charge by the project, and we clarify all that stuff before we begin. So the answer is it depends on how much they're willing to pay. So basically the same answer, a different way of getting there. I don't go into a project without a plan, and I make them stick to it. If they decide to jump off that horse and get on another one, then we're going to finish what we're doing and cycle up a new thing, because I schedule things, and if what they're asking for is going to take another day, that's one thing. If it's going to take 3 or 4 days, they're going to have to go back to the end of the queue with my other projects, or I'm going to say I'll do it with what I call a rush fee and do it, evenings or weekends to get you done faster. I have done maybe 20 or 25% of the themes that I've customized to the point where you can't tell which child theme it began as.
Yeah, me too.
So, well, that kind of brings me back to my last question, which is, do you tell people that you're using a child theme, and do you show it to them before you start the work? That way you kind of let's say, uh, be more strict on what you can and can't do. Like, you show them, hey, here's the child theme I'm using. The restrictions are this, this, and this. Anything within those restrictions are fine, but this is what I'm using. Do you guys open up like that, or do you guys keep it a secret and don't let them know that you're using something that's already pre-built?
I don't know that I would call it a secret. I just don't tell them. I just tell them that I'm working on the Genesis framework, which means nothing to them, and that I will choose a theme and that I can customize the theme if they would like. And we talk a little bit more about what it is that they want to accomplish.
So, but you do tell them
before I put a contract together and I give it to them and I give them a time frame, etc.
Yeah, but you're upfront about the whole, I'm using Genesis and I'm picking out a child theme, or I'm using a theme and I'm customizing said theme, right?
Yeah, because in my experience as a graphic designer for 45 plus years and doing websites for 12 years, most clients don't know anything about that. And so they're going to pick something that looks like eye candy, and that may not be the best fit for their business.
No, I understand that point. My question is, or more clarifying, that you do tell them you're using a theme. You might not say, hey, I'm using this particular theme, but you are being upfront about using a theme and you're customizing a theme, as opposed to saying, I'm going to just build you a website and let them kind of, maybe you don't tell them that you are building it, you're coding it, but you kind of let them assume that. You're kind of saying, I'm going to build you a custom website, when really you're just, let's say, downloading a theme and customizing it. You let them know I'm starting from somewhere, which is a theme, which I'm customizing for you, but you're not letting them think that you are building it from scratch, from the ground up.
No, I tell them that it's a theme. I tell them that using a theme can help save them some money on their website, as opposed to building it from scratch. That I'm using a WordPress and it's got a lot of different files that interact with each other. And so I use Genesis as the framework for it. I don't try to make it be something that it's not, but I also tell them that I can customize the heck out of it.
How about you, Jesse? Do you let clients know you're using a theme, or more specifically, which theme you're using?
Well, in about 2 minutes, I can give you the whole spiel that I give clients.
Okay.
So, WordPress.
So, if you want to wait 2 minutes, I will give you my side of it.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So my side of it was, when I was working as at the agency. I'm up front. We use Woo themes, but we told people, I think it was like a quick package solution. It was the affordable option. However, I don't think we were ever upfront about it, and that kind of bit us in the behind a couple times. So I think a few times, and this is also my personal experience. A couple clients, I'll say, hey, I'm building you a custom site, and I won't say anything more than that. So I'll let them assume that I'm coding everything from scratch, which again leads me into loopholes of, well, now how can I say no when they want me to customize something that's kind of out of the box for that theme? But then, what was it? A couple clients here and there actually figured it out. They actually, perused somehow the code, or in some fashion they found out, oh, hey, you're using this theme, and then they get upset. Hey, why are you charging me X amount of dollars when I could just do this myself, so to speak, by installing this theme, which I know, and they probably knew that they couldn't and they wouldn't, but apparently I was just charging way too much for them to be comfortable with me just using someone else's some pre-built code. So that was kind of like my revelation of not doing that anymore. I then switched over to saying, hey, I'll pick out a theme for you, and I would show it to them, and if they didn't like the price at the end of the day, then I would say fine, and I'd be on my way, or let them be on their way. But yeah, a couple of times it definitely bit me in the wrong place, that they erupted at, I had clients demand refunds and stuff like that, because in the end they're like, why are we paying you, and we assumed you were building this thing from scratch and it was completely custom, and I just never said, hey, I'm actually using a theme and customizing it.
I do use the phrase customize the heck out of it. So, you know, that helps a little bit.
I have too. So I start the conversation off. I I tend to over-educate just to avoid confusion and emails. I am an introvert. I don't like answering 20 emails when I get started on projects. So I educate them that WordPress interacts with themes, and eventually WordPress changes enough. If you've customized your theme, something will break. And I tell them, like, 6 years ago, they invented this thing called the menu. And themes that did not incorporate the menu, or these things called widgets, the theme was outdated, and people had to all get new themes to work with WordPress again. I said, so what Genesis does is it's a theme that stays in place and keeps the connection between WordPress and your database and your content, and we use a child theme that is only there for the functionality of the display of the content and the visitor interacting with it. So I explain it that way, and then part of my consulting part is to find out what the goals are for their site, what their purposes are, and we look at some child themes that would go towards those goals, or if their budget immediately said $20,000-$30,000, we're not looking at child themes. Or if we are, we're just using it for inspiration. So we're just saying, let's look at this and this and this, and then I draw them a sketch and they get a custom theme. And I'm not going to use a pre-built child theme for that, but I will gladly take giant snippets from them because Genesis is so modular. And the last 3 to 5 themes typically have some really cool stuff in it, especially menus or JavaScript or something like that. And I don't Java yet, so I'm learning it deeply, but I don't do it yet. I can break a site pretty well, and I always have been able to. So if I do that, I have created a starter theme. Genesis has a blank child theme. Brian Gardner, the creator of StudioPress, made a mobile-first version of it. Then I took the mobile-first version and I made a developer SaaS version of it. So I'm developing in SaaS with a blank Genesis child theme with barely any styles other than layout. And I customize the heck out of it because it starts off as a black and white theme and it ends up being this gorgeous thing. And so that's the process I go through. And my last client said, and he's a repeat client, and he's starting up a new business, and he says, I have $1,000. And so I said, you can pick one of these three themes, and I'll work for you for a day. And that's what you get. So yeah, that's going to be a customization. It's not going to be a lot of stuff. I will work on it for a day, and when I'm done with that day, that's what he gets. But that's what you get for $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, pricing is always a tricky thing because we get when I look at people at my meetup community as well, it's always the same thing. They're picking out themes, and maybe this is another question, but before I get to that, you know, picking out the right theme is a huge part of that. And just like I know code and I'm very comfortable with code, if you pick out a theme and you're using the theme consistently, you become more and more comfortable using it over and over again and recustomizing it to be different enough from client to client. Not to say that, you know, it has to be drastically different because clients aren't necessarily going to go look at, you know, your other websites, but it has to be different enough and justified to their business. So I guess that brings up another question: is do you guys have an arsenal of themes that you use? I mean, I know that Genesis, so most of the part, any Genesis theme is going to be, or child theme is going to be very similar on the back end. But let's say before Genesis or outside of the Genesis realm, do you have just like a handful of themes you consistently use, or do you just stick to one, or do you mind picking up a new theme every single time?
I like some of the ones that just came out, and I was sending that new client, or that repeat client, a list of themes just a couple days ago, and 5 minutes before I sent that, they released a new theme. So I had to go investigate it, click around, see how it worked, and I ended up putting it on the list. And I'm probably going to tear it apart and do some mobile-first stuff for it. But I pretty typically am down to 3 to 5 that I think are, I would just say that they're cookie cutter enough that you can modify it for most circumstances. Obviously, if someone wants a blog on the homepage, you're going to have to dig deeper than just looking at the demo's homepage, because it's usually going to be a long scroll. But yeah, I've probably got 3. You got atmosphere, altitude, parallax. Those are just the trends that are out right now, and that's what people want. So if I don't pick that, I use my starter theme and I code the crap out of it.
I was judging several weekends in a row. I was judging some American Advertising Federation Addy Awards, and it's a creative competition. And geez, in almost every instance, you could tell that they were using the same theme over and over and over again. And the long, scrolly, parallaxy things, you know, after you've seen about 10 of them, it's like, really? Really? But I personally use, I want to try out Parallax, but I personally use Executive Pro. I've used Beautiful, and I've used, I'm working on a site right now that's using Outreach because it's a nonprofit. So, you know, I definitely want to try some of the other themes.
But you're going to stick to the Genesis framework?
I'm going to just stick to it because I'm not getting any younger, and I'd like to just stick with one and learn how it thinks.
There's a lot of good options. So I don't think you're limiting yourself in any capacity by sticking to Genesis.
I'd like to try the scores. I'd like to try maybe Foundation. But
so underscores is definitely a good starter theme, but it's going to be a lot of code for you. And then Foundation is just a UI framework, like Bootstrap. But I will say that for anyone that is looking to get into it, that you should try to stick to one theme or a couple themes. I found that in my experience, I didn't. I would be like, oh sure, let me just pick out a new theme for us theme, and they're just different enough that every single time it was just ridiculous. It was like, okay, what am I getting myself into? Why is this so completely different? And there's always a learning curve versus sticking to one framework or one child theme, or let's say 3 child themes, or 3 themes to start from, and just knowing them inside and out to quickly get through and quickly deliver a website. And I think ultimately, how to make money selling WordPress consulting for themes, get through it as quickly as possible, figure out which ones you work the best with, and you know, I would say get into the limiting customization, but that's kind of another conversation. We call that scope creep. But make sure that everything is locked down. But yeah, as you see, 3 of us have made money selling WordPress themes, consulting of themes, and many, many, many more people do it regularly. So it is possible. It is not super difficult once you got your hands dirty. And you don't have to know that much code. In the end, you can actually get by with minimal code knowledge. I will recommend, obviously, learning code, because even minimal amounts of code knowledge will get you a lot farther. You can customize more, and then obviously, in that turns, you can sell your products for a higher price. That's about all that we have time for today. Any last remarks from both of you? Jesse, I know you wanted to share something.
Yeah, I put there in the chat a few of the child themes that I've been using most recently: Altitude, Atmosphere, Digital, Kickstart, Showcase. Those are all really, really good starts. If you are looking for a facelift on your own site because you got some priority issues with making money instead of working on your own site, throw one of these on there and it'll give you a really quick facelift. And these are easily customizable like crazy, like we've been talking about, not just color, but using some things or not using other ones. They're great starting points. Otherwise, if you know PHP and JavaScript, just Google mobile first SaaS Genesis. You'll probably find my GitHub repository for the Brian Gardner mobile first SaaS, and take it from there. It's on GitHub, so if you want to fork it, by all means fork it. And I love
So it's
saying
called
fork
what?
it. It's BG mobile first SaaS.
Okay.
Awesome.
I would say if you want to start customizing it, at the very least, learn HTML and CSS. You don't, even if you're not going to go into doing the whole PHP, Genesis really kind of requires that you know how to work with CSS. It's a process. You're not going to learn it in a weekend, but you need to learn it, or you're not going to be able to do very much customizing.
Yep, that is true. All right, cool. Well, thank you guys for joining us, and thank everyone for watching. We will see you next week. Maybe we'll do another one of these, maybe part 2. I'm not sure which one yet, but see you guys next week, and thank you guys for joining us again.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.